Welcome back to the Confession Stories. Tonight's confession isn't about a cheating spouse, or a secret second family, or a hidden bank account. It's about something a lot quieter, and somehow a lot more brutal. It's about the moment a woman who spent 15 years raising her little brother like he was her own child found out he got married from a picture on Instagram. No save the date, no text, no "I wish you could be here." Just one sentence, thrown at her through a phone speaker on his wedding night. "My wife doesn't want you there. She thinks you're pathetic." What followed wasn't a tantrum, or a scene in the middle of a reception, or a plate-smashing meltdown. What followed was a quiet calculation, a spreadsheet, a phone call to a lawyer, and a financial reckoning worth over $400,000. And underneath all of that, it was the story of a woman who finally realized she wasn't her brother's mother, caretaker, or emergency fund. She was just his sister. Tonight, you'll hear how Hannah, a nurse from Boston, went from "I've got you always" to "I'm done saving you from yourself." Stay with me. If you've ever been the responsible one, the fixer, the person everyone calls when their life catches fire, this story might feel a little too familiar.
My name is Hannah Cole. I'm 37 years old, and I've spent more time in hospital corridors than in my own living room. I'm an emergency nurse at a hospital in Boston, the kind of place where the fluorescent lights never really turn off, and you count your day in heartbeats and monitors, not in hours. I have cleaned blood off my shoes at 3 a.m. I have told parents that their child didn't make it. I have watched strangers hold hands through the worst nights of their lives. You would think that would be the hardest part of my story. It isn't. The hardest part of my story arrived on a Monday morning that looked exactly like every other Monday morning. I came off a 12-hour night shift just after 7 a.m. The sky over Boston was that washed-out gray that makes the whole city feel tired. I drove back to my little rented apartment in Jamaica Plain, exhausted, hair pinned back in a bun that should have been taken out hours ago, scrubs wrinkled, stethoscope still hanging around my neck. I kicked off my shoes, put on the kettle, and sank onto the couch like someone had unplugged me. Like most burned-out adults who swear they're just going to sit for 5 minutes, I reached for my phone, thumb on autopilot, Instagram. I scrolled past latte art, gym selfies, a girl from high school posting about a multi-level marketing scheme that changed her life, a coworker showing off their dog in a Halloween costume. Nothing stuck. My brain was cotton. And then, there it was. A photo so bright, so polished, so aggressively happy that my overtired brain took a full 3 seconds to understand it. My little brother, Ethan Cole, in a navy suit that definitely wasn't his, standing on a rooftop in downtown Boston with his arms around a woman in a white, fitted wedding dress. Her veil was caught midair in the wind, his hand was on her waist, and they were kissing under a canopy of fairy lights with the Boston skyline blurred behind them. Confetti floated in the air. Someone had caught the exact second the world was supposed to remember. I stared. For a moment, I honestly thought, oh, it's a styled shoot, because the alternative would have meant my entire life had just shifted sideways. Then I read the caption, "The best day of my life with my forever. Lane Cole, wedding. Just married. Boston rooftop love." My thumb went numb. I zoomed in. His hair was a little longer than the last time I'd seen him. He'd grown some scruff. He looked older. The woman, Madison Lane, I recognized from his stories. Influencer, lifestyle content. A lot of beige and white interiors, sponsored candles, and captions about manifesting abundance. They looked like an ad for a wedding venue, The date on the post? Yesterday, the location tag? Seaport Rooftop, Boston, MA, which is 20 minutes from my apartment. I hadn't missed a call. I checked. No voicemail, no text, no, sorry, we kept it small, no, I wish you could be here, but nothing. The last message from Ethan in my phone was 2 weeks old. Rent hit your account, love you, you're the best. Before that, you're a lifesaver. Can you spot me for car insurance this month? Promise I'll pay you back when things pick up. No mention of a wedding. No. Hey, I bought a ring. No hint that his life was about to change in a way that didn't include me at all. I scrolled through the carousel. Second picture. Them exchanging rings. Madison crying delicately in a way that would photograph well. Third. Her bouquet, white peonies and eucalyptus, captioned, officially, Mrs. Cole. Fourth. Her dress in full view, him dipping her back dramatically. Fifth, a wide shot of the rooftop. Friends, co-workers, a long table full of candles and champagne glasses. I paused on that one. Half the faces I didn't recognize. The other half were people from his job and her content creator circle. Not one single person from our side of the family. The comment section was a pool of glitter. So happy for you guys. You both looked incredible. Best wedding ever. Madison, you were glowing. Ethan, you clean up so well. Cannot believe I got to witness this. People gushing, friends, followers, brand reps. Everyone had been there for what they were calling the best day ever. Everyone except the woman who'd raised him. That was the part that hurt, in a way I felt physically. A pain that bloomed in my chest like someone had placed a hand there and slowly started to press. And of course, because human brains are cruel, that's when the old memories began pushing up. Not gently, not kindly, just forcing their way back in. I was 22 the night my mother died. A drunk driver ran a red light in Dorchester and hit her car hard enough that the paramedics never even tried to bring her back. I found out at work. I was a nursing assistant then. Bottom of the ladder, wiping down beds and emptying bins. Someone from the police department was waiting in the hallway outside the break room. They said my name. They asked if we could talk somewhere private. I remember a coffee machine humming, a clock ticking too loudly, and then a sentence that split my life in two. There's been an accident. After that, everything blurred. Except one thing. My little brother, Ethan, sitting on a hard plastic chair in the hospital corridor, 14 years old, skinny knees pulled up to his chest, hands shaking. He kept looking at me like I was supposed to make this better, like I knew how. Our dad had left years before. There was no second parent to call, no aunt who could take us in. No savings account with a neat little plan for in case of emergency. It was just us. Me in cheap sneakers and blue scrubs. Him in a school hoodie with a stain on the sleeve. When the social worker asked who Ethan would be staying with, I didn't even hesitate. I'll take care of him, I said. I'm his sister. He can come with me. The woman looked at my file. My age, my job title, my tiny one-bedroom apartment. You're very young, she said gently. My mother just died, I replied. He's 14, I'm what he has. So I took leave from work, moved us into a slightly bigger place I could barely afford, picked up extra shifts. I became, overnight, his guardian, his alarm clock, his ride to school, his emergency contact, his first line of defense against the world. I worked nights and evenings, first as a nursing assistant, then in school to become a nurse, studying in the breaks between patients and paperwork. I made spaghetti with dollar store sauce. I packed his lunches and left them in the fridge with notes written on sticky pads. I went to parent-teacher conferences and signed permission slips and tried to remember that I was only 8 years older than him. I was supposed to be young, but I didn't feel young. I was the one who held him when he cried about missing Mom, even on nights when I hadn't slept for 24 hours. I was the one who scraped together enough money to get him a half-decent laptop in high school so he wouldn't fall behind. I was the one who told him, "You won't have to worry about rent when you're starting out. I'll make sure you're okay, I promise." Years later, when he got into an engineering program, I cried harder than he did. I helped fill out his FAFSA forms, paid what the loans didn't cover, bought him a flat-pack desk and an office chair for his tiny dorm room. He'd FaceTime me from campus parties with a red cup in hand, laughing, telling me about girls, projects, professors. He called me Han like he always had. He told people, "She basically raised me." He made it sound like a compliment. When he graduated, I found a small condo near the Seaport District, a one-bedroom overlooking the harbor, light bouncing off the water in the afternoons. The listing price made me feel sick. $340,000. I ran numbers like I ran codes at work. Quickly, desperately, with a part of me knowing I was about to do something I couldn't undo. I bought it anyway, put the mortgage in my name, let him move in with just a few boxes, 2 duffel bags, and a plant he forgot to water. "This is insane," he'd said, spinning slowly in the empty living room. "You deserve a stable place to start from," I replied. "Someone did it for me when I started nursing school. I'm just passing it on." He'd hugged me so hard I couldn't breathe. "I'll pay you back," he'd promised into my hair. "I swear, someday I'll make this up to you." I also opened a separate account, a high-yield savings plan, and nicknamed it Ethan Europe. Every month, I put in a chunk of my paycheck. He'd always wanted to backpack through Europe after graduation: London, Paris, Rome, Amsterdam. We'd look at photos on my phone on nights when I came home from the hospital too wired to sleep. "I'll send you," I'd told him, not as a handout, as a gift for surviving everything. Years later, that account balance sat at $35,000. Now, sitting on my couch with my scrubs still on and my eyes burning, I stared at a wedding album I hadn't been invited to. And for the first time, all those sacrifices didn't feel noble. They felt naive. I did something I'd never done before. I called my brother while I was angry. I pressed call right there on his profile. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Then, "Hey, it's Ethan, leave a..." Voicemail. I hung up, called again. Same thing. 3rd time, 4th. By the 5th attempt, my pulse had steadied in a way that scared me. By the 7th, I didn't know what I was going to say. I only knew I refused to learn about my brother's marriage the same way strangers had. On the 7th call, someone finally picked up. But it wasn't Ethan. A bright, irritated voice came through the speaker. "Hello?" It was Madison. I knew her voice from videos he'd sent me, her talking about skincare routines and sponsorships and authentic partnerships. "Hi, it's Hannah," I said. A pause, then a small laugh. "Oh, you?" She didn't say my name like family. She said it like a nuisance. "We just got back from the reception," she added. "What's up?" My throat felt tight. "I saw the photos," I said. "I saw the wedding. Why didn't anyone tell me?" There was a small sound, like she'd covered the receiver for a second, and then her voice dropped into something sharper. "Because I didn't want you there." Silence fell so heavy I could hear my own heartbeat. She continued, almost bored. "You hover over Ethan like he's still 14. You pay for everything. You show up in every crisis. You micromanage his life. It's suffocating. Honestly, it's pathetic." The word hit harder than I expected. Not because I believed it, but because Ethan wasn't jumping in to contradict her. "He said that?" I asked quietly. She didn't answer right away. In the background, I heard him say, "Madison, just give me the..." She moved the phone so his voice went faint. "We're married now, Hannah," she said. "We're adults. We don't need your approval. We don't need your money. We don't need you hovering over every decision." Something inside me, something that had bent for years, finally stopped. Not broke. Stopped. My voice came out calm. "The condo you live in?" I said. "The one in the seaport with the harbor view? I bought it. The mortgage is in my name. The savings account labeled Ethan Europe? That's my money. The flights to London and Rome you were probably planning to post about. On my card." Madison snorted. "Please. Ethan has sponsorships lined up. My following just hit 200,000. Brands are throwing deals at us. We'll refinance the place. We'll cover the bills. We're not your charity project anymore. As for that Europe money, consider it a wedding gift. We'll make better use of it anyway." I tightened my grip on the phone until my fingers hurt. "So, let me get this straight," I said. "You cut me out of your wedding. You insult me. You call my help pathetic. And you still expect to live in a home I pay for and spend money I saved?" For the first time, I heard Ethan come fully onto the line. "Hannah, look," he said. "She's not completely wrong. You have done a lot. I know that. I'm grateful. But it always feels like there are strings attached. I'm 28. I don't need you managing my life anymore." Strings. I thought about the nights I'd come home from the hospital too tired to eat, but still checked if his tuition payment had gone through. The weekends I'd picked up extra shifts because he called and said, "Rent's a little tight this month." The time I postponed a vacation because his car's transmission failed and he needed help. If those were strings, they were ones I'd tied to keep him from slipping off the edge. Madison's voice slid in again, sharp as glass. "Exactly," she said. "Always the martyr speech. Look at everything I did for you. It's exhausting. Ethan wants space. I'm giving it to him. Don't call again unless it's to congratulate us properly." And with that, she hung up. The line went dead. The kettle was still whistling in the kitchen. The tea I'd meant to make had turned into steam and nothing. The hospital wristband I'd forgotten to cut off itched against my skin. For a long time, I just sat there and listened to my own breathing. Not crying, not screaming, just realizing. If they were so sure they didn't need me, maybe it was time to let them find out what that really meant. I wish I could say I took a day to cool down, that I journaled, talked to a therapist, processed my feelings, and made a well-regulated decision. I didn't. I put on jeans and a sweater, grabbed my keys, pulled my hair into a cleaner knot, and drove straight to the seaport. Boston looked almost pretty that morning, the kind of cold light that makes the glass buildings look taller and more important than they really are. I parked on the street near the condo building, stared up at its brick and glass facade, and felt something strange. Not fear, not rage, just finality. I took the elevator up to the 6th floor. I'd been there 100 times, dropping off groceries, fixing a leaky sink, helping him assemble furniture from flat cardboard boxes. This time, I didn't unlock the door with the spare key I still had. I knocked. 3 firm knocks. The door opened a few inches. Madison. No veil this time, no gown, just an oversized sweatshirt that probably cost more than my work shoes, leggings, and her phone in her hand like a second limb. Her eyes flicked over me, from my sneakers to my tired face, like she was rating me. "What are you doing here?" she asked. Behind her, I could see the edge of the living room, white sofa, new throw pillows, Flowers in a vase that I definitely didn't pay for. Wedding gifts still half-wrapped on the floor. I need to talk to my brother, I said. Alone. She didn't move. Anything you need to say, she replied, you can say in front of me. I'm his wife. The word hung there like a trophy. Ethan appeared behind her, hair messy, suit jacket gone, tie hanging loose around his neck. He looked not happy, exactly, but not sorry either. Hannah, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. It's kind of a bad time. Bad time? I repeated. You got married without telling me. There isn't a good time for that conversation. Madison crossed her arms, phone still in hand. Say what you need to say, she said. We have unpacking to do? I looked at Ethan, really looked at him. At the man who'd called me from his dorm because he didn't know how to cook pasta without burning it. At the boy who'd slept on my shoulder in waiting rooms after Mom's death. At the teenager who'd said, I'll pay you back someday, with tears in his eyes. You let her call me pathetic, I said softly. You told her I control your life. You cut me out of the biggest day of your life. Explain that to my face. He shifted his weight, eyes darting to the side. It's not like that, he muttered. You're always there, bailing me out, paying for things, fixing things. It feels like you still think I'm a kid. I need to prove I can stand on my own. I let that sink in. You want to stand on your own? I said. Okay, let's talk about what you're standing on. I nodded toward the hallway, toward the harbor-facing windows he loved to post on his stories. This place, I said. The down payment came out of my savings. The mortgage, every month, comes out of my account. The property tax, mine. The homeowner's insurance, mine. The emergency repairs when the pipes burst last winter, also mine. Madison rolled her eyes. We know you helped, she said. We're not saying you didn't, but things are different now. Ethan's got a promotion coming. I have multiple brand deals in the pipeline. We'll refinance in our names. We'll take it over. You don't have to hang it over us forever. As for that Europe fund, we're using it to kickstart our life together. You should be happy. Behind me, I heard a door quietly open. A neighbor peeked into the hallway, phone in hand, camera already ready. Across the corridor, another door shifted a crack. Voices, low and hungry, sharing gossip in real time. Is that his sister? Did they really not invite her? God, this building is better than Netflix. Madison must have noticed because her posture shifted, chin up, shoulders back, a subtle, smug little angle toward the nearest phone. Content. I realized I was being turned into a storyline. If you're so independent, I said quietly, why is everything in my name? She didn't answer. I turned back to Ethan. You think my help comes with strings? I said. The only string I ever attached was this. Don't treat me like I don't exist. And you couldn't even keep that. His jaw tightened. Hannah, you're blowing this out of proportion, he said. It was a small wedding. It all came together fast. We didn't want drama. You got drama anyway, I said. Not because I showed up, because you erased the one person who kept you from falling apart for 14 years. The neighbor's phone light blinked red. This was a show. They were waiting for me to yell, to cry, to beg, to confirm whatever version of me Madison had already sold them. Instead, I felt something I didn't expect. Relief. Because for the first time, the roles were clear. I'm not going to argue with you in a hallway, I said. I'm not going to list every bill I've paid or every time I stepped in when you were drowning. You already know. You just don't care. Madison lifted her chin. Finally, she said, you're getting it. Yeah, I replied. I am. I turned away, walked past the neighbor, pressed the elevator button. The doors slid open. In the reflection, I saw myself, tired, eyes rimmed red, jaw set. But there was something new in my expression. A line, a boundary I hadn't drawn before. Back in my car, I sat for a moment and looked up at the building. At the windows I could no longer afford to see as a gift. At the life I'd effectively funded for two people who had no problem cutting me out of the frame. If they wanted independence so desperately, I was about to give it to them in the one language they clearly understood. Money. When I got home, I didn't cry. I opened my laptop. A blank spreadsheet stared back at me. I named it Ethan and Madison Financial Exposure Audit. Column A, Asset. Column B, Approximate Value. Column C, Legal Owner. Column D, Action. Row 1. Seaport, Harbor Loft Condo in $340,000 purchase price. Legal Owner, Hannah Cole. Action. List for sale. Terminate all associated services. Row 2. Ethan Europe Savings Account, $35,000. Legal Owner, Hannah Cole. Ethan as intended beneficiary. Action, close account. Withdraw full balance. Accept penalties if any. Row 3. 2 premium economy tickets. Boston, London, Rome, Boston, $7,800 total. Purchaser, Hannah Cole. Action, call airline. Cancel. Request, refund, credit. Row 4. Condo-related utilities. Electric, water, gas, internet, streaming bundle, all accounts under Hannah Cole, action, schedule termination, or transfer. Row 5. Homeowners insurance, appliance warranties, parking lease, variable amounts, policyholder, Hannah Cole, action, cancel or adjust post-sale. I kept going. Every monthly draft, every recurring charge, every small thing I'd said yes to without thinking. The total, rough but honest, crossed $400,000 in exposure. $400,000 propping up a life I wasn't even invited to watch from a folding chair. I stared at the number. Then I reached for my phone and scrolled to a contact labeled Amelia Park, Real Estate and Contracts. We'd met when she bought donuts for the night shift after her father survived a stroke in our ward. She'd told me, "If you ever need a real estate agent or a contracts nerd, call me. I owe your team a lot." I'd laughed then. I wasn't laughing now. "Hey, it's Hannah," I said when she picked up. Her voice warmed. "Hey, nurse superhero." "What's up?" "I need to know," I said, keeping my tone even, "if I can sell a condo and unwind some things without my little brother having any legal say. Everything is in my name. He and his new wife live there. They also assume they're entitled to a savings account and some plane tickets I paid for." Her voice shifted into professional gear. "Send me copies of the deed, the mortgage, the savings account paperwork, and the ticket confirmations," she said. "I'll look tonight. But from what you're saying, it sounds like you're holding all the keys." 40 minutes later, my inbox pinged. She'd written a short paragraph. "You can sell the condo without their consent. You can close the savings account. You can cancel the tickets. None of these are legally theirs. Emotionally messy? Yes. Legally? You're clean. If you want out, you can walk." She attached a listing agreement template, a sample letter to the bank, suggested language for terminating utilities. I printed everything, signed what I could. By the time the sky outside my window had lightened to blue, my kitchen table looked less like a place to eat and more like a war room. Except this time, I wasn't fighting to keep someone else afloat. I was fighting for my own oxygen mask. The morning I decided to actually pull the trigger wasn't dramatic. No lightning, no storm, just a pale Boston sky and the sound of my upstairs neighbor dragging a chair across their kitchen floor. My alarm went off at 8 a.m. I turned it off before it finished the first ring. I'd slept maybe 4 hours. Didn't matter. Clarity has a way of replacing caffeine. I made coffee, black. Strong enough to strip paint. Then I sat back down at the kitchen table where my war room was still laid out. Deed. Account statements, ticket confirmations. A printed email from Amelia with the words, "If you want out, you can walk." So I started walking. First call, the airline. I put my phone on speaker, opened my laptop to the confirmation email for the 2 tickets to London and Rome, and braced myself for being put on hold. "Thank you for calling Atlantic Airways," a cheerful voice said after 2 rings. "My name is Jenna. How can I help you today?" "I need to cancel a reservation," I said. She asked for the booking code. I read it out, a pause, typing. "I see here 2 passengers, Boston to London, returning from Rome. Travel dates in May, is that correct?" "That's correct." "May I ask the reason for cancellation?" I considered saying, "My brother decided to marry someone who thinks I'm pathetic, and I'd rather not sponsor their European honeymoon." But instead, I went with, "Change of plans." Another pause. "Because you booked a flexible fare," she said. "You're eligible for an 80% refund to the original form of payment minus a small processing fee. That would be $6,200. "Process it," I said. I watched the little spinning icon on my email tab. A new message popped up. "Your refund is being processed." Just like that, 2 seats on a plane went from being their escape route to my reclaimed money. Next, the savings account. I logged into my online banking, clicked on Ethan Europe, and stared at the balance. $35.27.43. 10 years of extra shifts of saying I can't make it to dinners and trips because I was tired or broke or both. I hovered over the button that said Close Account. A warning popped up. Closing this account may result in loss of the accrued interest. Are you sure you want to continue? I almost laughed. Loss of interest. I'd been losing interest in this dynamic for years. I clicked Yes. A second box appeared. Please select reason for closing this account. The options were things like better interest rate elsewhere, financial hardship, consolidating funds. I picked other and typed reallocating resources. Then hit submit. Another email pinged. Account closure successful. Funds will be transferred to your primary checking account within 1 to 3 business days. I leaned back in my chair and let out a long, slow breath. It didn't feel good. It didn't feel triumphant. It just felt necessary. At 10:30, I called Amelia. "Morning," she said. "You ready?" "Yes," I replied. "As ready as I'm going to be." We went through the listing details for the condo, square footage, recent repairs, the view, the building amenities. "This will go fast," she said. "Harbor view, updated kitchen, your building's in demand. We'll list at $369,000. Expect offers by the weekend." There was one thing gnawing at me. "What about them?" I asked. "Ethan and Madison, they're living there." "Do they pay you rent?" she asked. "Not reliably," I said. "But they're not on the mortgage. Their names aren't on the deed." "Then legally," she said, "they're occupants only because you allow it. This is your property. You're allowed to sell it. We'll give them notice. But they don't get to stop you." I signed the digital listing agreement while we were still on the phone and watched as she clicked publish. Within an hour, the condo was online. Bright photos of sunlight on hardwood floors, the harbor glittering through floor-to-ceiling windows. If I hadn't known what that place cost me, I might have fallen in love with it all over again. Instead, I opened 3 more tabs: electric, water, internet, all under my login. I scheduled each one for disconnection in 30 days. The window Amelia said was realistic for closing. For the streaming bundle, I didn't bother waiting. I logged in, went to manage profiles. and deleted the one named Ethan and Maddie. The screen asked if I was sure. I clicked yes before it could finish the sentence. By noon, I had done something I didn't know I was capable of. I had pulled every quiet rope I'd been holding for years. At 1 p.m., I sent a single text to Ethan. "You told me you don't need my help. I'm taking you at your word. All financial support has ended. The condo will be sold. You'll receive notice. Do not contact me about money again." I stared at it for a full minute, then hit send, then blocked his number. My phone felt lighter and heavier at the same time. That evening, after a nap I didn't remember falling into, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. A second call, same number. I rejected it. A third, a fourth. On the fourth, I put it on silent and walked into the bathroom to wash my face. When I came back, there was a voicemail notification. My hand hovered over it for a moment. Then I pressed play. "Hannah, it's me." Ethan. His voice was wrecked, not the easygoing tone he used in voice notes. This sounded like his chest hurt just to talk. "I know you blocked my number," he said. "I had to borrow Nate's phone. Please don't hang up if you listen to this. Please." He took a shaky breath. "Everything's gone," he said. "The sponsorship, it fell through. They wanted Madison to post 5 reels a week to hit certain engagement numbers. Her first video did okay, 10,000 views. The rest tanked. They terminated the contract. We have to pay back most of the advance." He sniffed hard. "The rent here is insane, Hannah. We thought with my promotion coming, we'd be fine. Then the promotion went to someone else. Halved our income overnight. We maxed out 3 credit cards trying to keep up. Madison said it was temporary, that we were investing in the brand." There was a bitter little laugh that didn't sound like him at all. "Then last week, I found hotel receipts on her email, a different name under the room. Messages. She didn't even try that hard to hide it. When I confronted her, she said she was tired of living with a man who still had his big sister on his financial leash. She said he wasn't alpha enough for the life she wanted." My jaw clenched. "She left," he continued. "Took half of what we bought, the nicer things, obviously. She blocked me on everything and did this whole crying story about choosing herself." Another pause. "I got written up at work for being late, then again for no-shows. Third time, they fired me. Said they wished me the best. The car payments fell behind. They took it back last Friday. I didn't even have enough money to Uber home from the tow lot." His breathing was jagged now. "I'm at Nate's place, on his couch. He said I can stay here for a week or 2, but he has a baby on the way. I know I messed up, hon. I know I hurt you. But I'm out of options. Can I stay with you? Just for a while. I'll find another job. I'll pay rent. I'll do whatever you want. Please." The message ended with a muffled sob and a click. I sat very still. The fridge hummed. A car drove by outside. Somewhere in another apartment, someone laughed at a TV show. I replayed the voicemail twice, not because I didn't understand it the first time, but because the first time, old reflexes had flared up so fast I almost missed what my body was really telling me. For years, if Ethan was in pain, I reacted like there was a code blue on my unit. Drop everything, run, fix it. This time, something else happened. I felt sad. And then, immediately after, I felt clear. I called the number back. He picked up before the first ring finished. "Hannah?" He sounded so hopeful it almost cracked me. "It's me," I said. "Thank you for telling me the truth. I'm sorry you're going through this." "Then help me," he said quickly. "I'll be better this time. You can set rules, curfews, whatever. I just need a place that isn't someone's couch or a shelter. Every cell in my body expected me to say yes, to move into autopilot, to start Googling nursing positions for him, to send him a transfer, just until you get on your feet. But there was another part of me now that finally had a voice. It spoke before my old patterns could. No, I said. Not harsh, not cruel, just steady. He went very quiet. What? No, I repeated. I'm not opening my home to you again. I'm not opening my wallet. I'm not fixing what you chose to break. He sucked in a breath. Hannah, please. I know I screwed up. I know Madison was awful to you. I was stupid. I was blind. I see that now. But you're my sister. Family forgives. I closed my eyes. I was your sister, I said, when Mom died. When I signed custody papers, no 22-year-old should ever have to sign. When I packed your lunches, when I stayed up late to help you with homework after a 12-hour shift, when I co-signed your student loans, when I bought you that condo so you wouldn't start adult life in some crumbling basement, when I skipped vacations so you could have a savings account with your name on it, when I booked flights so you could finally see the cities you talked about for a decade. I took a breath. And you were my brother, I continued, right up until the moment you let someone call me pathetic on your wedding night, right up until you agreed that my help came with strings. Right up until you decided that pretending I didn't exist on the biggest day of your life was somehow less embarrassing than admitting you still needed me. He started crying. Big, broken sobs that reminded me of the 14-year-old boy on that hospital chair. The difference was that back then, none of this had been his fault. Hannah, please, he choked out. I know I don't deserve it, but I don't know what to do. I'm so scared. I understand that, I said. But scared is not the same thing as entitled. You're scared because your safety net is gone. You ripped it out with your own hands. I'm not sewing it back up so you can jump again. There was a long pause. Hannah, I hope, I said quietly, that you figure this out. I hope you get therapy. I hope you learn what real accountability feels like. But I will not sacrifice myself for your lessons anymore. You're really going to leave me like this? He whispered. No, I said. I'm going to leave you with the consequences of your own choices, for the first time. He inhaled sharply, like I'd hit him. I almost apologized. Old habits. Instead, I ended the call, then blocked that number too. When I walked back into my small living room, nothing had changed. Same couch, same little TV, same plant on the windowsill, trying its best to stay alive. But the air felt different, lighter somehow, like I'd finally put down a weight I'd been carrying so long I forgot it was there. For years, my love for Ethan had felt like a full-time job on top of the one I was paid for. That day, for the first time, I clocked out. You'd think that after a moment like that, life would feel cinematic. Like there'd be a soundtrack or a dramatic montage. It wasn't like that. It was small things at first. I went to work. I charted my patients. I held hands in the trauma bay. I helped stitch someone up after a bar fight. I watched a drunk college kid cry because he thought his parents would be disappointed. I handed him tissues and thought, at least he cares. I stopped checking my phone every hour. There were no new messages from Ethan. No late-night texts that said, "Hey, can we talk?" The silence felt loud at first. Then it felt peaceful. 2 weeks after listing, Amelia called me. "Are you sitting down?" she asked. "Yes," I said, though I wasn't. "We have 3 offers," she said. "All over asking. One is cash. No contingencies. $378,000. 30-day close. They loved the view." I leaned back against the counter. "Take it," I said. "Are you sure?" "Yes," I said. "We're done babysitting that place. Let it go." An odd thing happened the day we closed. I expected to feel guilty. To imagine Ethan and Madison standing in an empty living room, angry and displaced. What I actually felt was relief. The sale paid off the remaining mortgage, covered closing costs, and dropped nearly $30,000 of pure profit into my account. Amelia emailed me with a little note. "Congratulations, you just untied yourself from a very expensive anchor." I took a screenshot and saved it, not because of the number, because of the word, anchor. That condo had never really been a gift. It had been a chain. Around the same time, the transfer from Ethan Europe finished processing. The $35,000 landed in my checking account along with the airline refund. For the first time in my adult life, I had real savings that weren't mentally labeled for someone else. The hospital noticed too. Not the money. The fact that I'd stopped looking like a human pressure cooker all the time. I wasn't checking my phone on my breaks, waiting to see what new crisis Ethan had created. I wasn't asking to swap shifts last minute because of family stuff. I showed up, I did my job, and I went home to a life that didn't immediately explode again. My nurse manager, Rosa, pulled me aside one afternoon and said, "You're lighter, Cole. Did you finally get rid of whatever trash man was dragging you down?" I laughed. "Something like that," I said. A month later, she called me into her office, closed the door, and slid a folder toward me. I tensed. Old habit, assuming something bad was coming. Instead, she smiled. "You've been here a long time," she said. "Held this place together more nights than I can count. We're opening a new clinical coordinator position in the ER. Higher pay, more say in how things run. I want you to take it." The promotion came with a raise I hadn't expected. Not life-changing, but life-easing. I celebrated the only way I knew how. I booked a trip, not for Ethan, not someday, for me. 3 weeks later, I stood at Logan Airport with a small suitcase, a passport that had never seen a stamp, and a boarding pass with my name on it only. Destination, Lisbon, then on to Paris, then Amsterdam, 2 weeks. No one waiting on my money, no one calling in a panic. On the second night in Lisbon, I sat at a tiny table in a side street restaurant, eating grilled fish and drinking Vinho Verde. I watched tourists walk by, listening to snippets of conversations in half a dozen languages. I thought about the 10 years I'd imagined this trip from the wrong angle, always picturing Ethan in the photos. Ethan at the Eiffel Tower. Ethan with a backpack on some cobblestone street. Ethan finally getting what he deserved. I lifted my glass and toasted an empty chair. "To me," I said under my breath, "to the person who deserved this all along." When I came home, I didn't feel guilty. The world had not ended because I spent money on myself. The hospital was still there. My patients were still sick. Life went on. So did I. As for Ethan, the updates came in fragments, not because I asked, because the world is small and people talk. One of the paramedics who sometimes brought patients into our ER mentioned, "Oh, your brother did some shifts at our service as a dispatcher, didn't last long, couldn't handle the hours." A barista near my hospital said, "I think your brother was living upstairs from us for a bit. He moved out in the middle of the night. Left a bunch of stuff behind." Someone else from his old job mentioned seeing him at a job fair in a wrinkled shirt, handing out resumes that looked like he'd printed them on the cheapest paper possible. Madison's public implosion played out online for anyone to see. Her follower count dropped like a stock in a scandal. Branded posts dried up, comment sections filled with questions. "Hey, what happened to the husband?" Didn't you used to brag about your engineer fiancé? Why are you begging for sponsors every other story? She did a crying video once. The mascara streaks, the shaky voice, the classic influencer apology tone without actually apologizing for anything. I didn't watch it. A coworker tried to show me on her phone during a break. I turned away. I'm not her audience, I said. The thing about stepping out of a role you've played your whole life is that it doesn't just change that relationship, it changes every relationship around it. Without Ethan as my permanent project, I suddenly had time, and energy, and space in my head for other things. I joined a yoga class a friend had been inviting me to for years. Started buying fresh flowers for my kitchen table on payday without calculating what Ethan might need that week. Read books, real ones with paper pages, not just articles about helping family members with financial trouble. I even tried pottery. My first bowl came out lopsided and a little sad. I kept it anyway. It was proof I was allowed to be bad at something that didn't involve taking care of someone else. I went to therapy regularly. My therapist, a woman with kind eyes and a spine of steel, listened as I talked about Mom, about Ethan, about the way I'd built my entire personality around being the strong one. One day, she said something that lodged in my chest and refused to move. Parentifying yourself saved you both at the time, she said. But the thing about survival mechanisms is they don't always know when the emergency is over. I realized I had kept living like disaster was always 3 minutes away, like Ethan might fall off some invisible cliff if I wasn't constantly holding the back of his shirt. But he wasn't 14 anymore, and if he chose to jump, it wasn't my hands that pushed him. 6 months after the condo sold, I received an envelope in the mail from a bank I didn't recognize. The return address made my stomach dip. It was the bank Ethan had refinanced his car through. I opened it, heart pounding for reasons that went back years. Inside was a notice addressed to Ethan Cole and cosigner, except the cosigner line was blanked out. The letter explained that his car had been repossessed months ago due to non-payment. They were pursuing him for the remaining balance. Not me, because my name wasn't on anything anymore. I sat down. Not because I was upset, because I was stunned. For so long, I'd assumed that any mistake he made would automatically spill into my life. That if he messed up, I'd pay. Seeing my absence on that paper felt like looking at a healed scar. I folded the letter, put it back in the envelope, and dropped it into my shred pile. I didn't owe him my outrage. I didn't owe him a lecture. I didn't owe him a rescue. I owed myself a quiet evening, a decent meal, and 8 hours of sleep before my next shift. So that's what I gave myself. The last time I heard about Ethan was almost a year after the wedding I wasn't invited to. A mutual acquaintance, a nurse who lived on the other side of town, mentioned casually, "Oh, I saw your brother at the community clinic last week. He's working there, front desk." Didn't say much. Looked calmer. I nodded. "Good," I said. I didn't ask for more details. I didn't stalk his social media. I didn't unblock him. You'd think the end of a story like this would be big. A confrontation, a showdown, a last-minute apology, or a grand gesture. It wasn't. It was me watering my plant, paying my own bills, booking another solo trip, this time to Scotland because I'd always wanted to see the Highlands, and not feeling like I needed someone else to validate that I deserved it. It was me sitting on my little balcony on a summer evening, legs up on a chair, a glass of iced tea in my hand, writing in my journal without every sentence turning back to him. One night, I wrote a single line in the middle of a clean page. You don't lose family when you set boundaries. You only lose the people who were using you. I stared at it for a long time. Then I underlined the last part, twice. I'm not going to pretend I never missed the version of Ethan who sat on the couch with me as a teenager, watching bad movies, making fun of the dialogue, stealing popcorn out of the bowl. I do. Grief isn't always for the people who died. Sometimes it's for the people who are still alive, but chose a version of themselves you can't keep in your life. But here's what I know now. After everything, love that only exists as long as you're useful isn't love. It's dependence wearing your face. I spent 15 years being a safety net for someone who didn't see the difference. Now, finally, I'm learning how to walk a tightrope for myself. No one below, no one above, just me. And for the first time in my life, that doesn't feel terrifying. It feels like freedom. Oh.
Thank you for staying with us through this story. Some confessions aren't about cheating, or double lives, or dramatic confrontations caught on camera. Sometimes, the most brutal betrayal is the quiet kind, when the person you raised, the person you'd have given everything for, looks at your sacrifices and calls them pathetic. Tonight, you heard Hannah's side, the big sister who became a parent before she finished being a child, the nurse who knew how to save strangers but had to learn how to stop saving someone who didn't want to change. If this story hit something in you, if you've ever been the responsible one, the fixer, the emergency contact for people who never show up for you, I want you to hear this clearly. Setting boundaries doesn't make you cruel. It doesn't erase what you've already given. It doesn't turn your love into a lie. It just means you've finally decided to stop burning yourself to keep other people warm. Tell me, what would you have done in Hannah's place? Would you have sold the condo, cut off the money, blocked the number, or would you have let him move back in? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And if you know someone who's been carrying a family on their back for years, someone who always picks up the phone, always pays the bill, always shows up even when no one else does, send them this story, not to tell them what to do, just to remind them that they're allowed to choose themselves without being the villain. This is The Confession Stories. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next one.